if I said to you everything that happens to you, every thought you have, every feeling, every emotion you have, every person you talk to, every relationship you have with friends, colleagues, family members, every experience you have, and every thought and feeling you have about that experience can all be seen as your very own feedback mechanism. If I told you that, would you start listening to it? Would you start paying more attention to things? Because that's the richness of the experience. Whatever it is, there's always something there for you which will tell you something about yourself, about where you are right now, about where you've come from, where you're heading, what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Look at the people that you hang around with, look at the friends that you have. They tell you something about yourself. How you respond to those people, how you respond to family members, how you respond to colleagues, tells you something about yourself. Every thought, every word that comes out of your mouth tells you something about yourself. So it's at the level of the very subtle and at the level of the very obvious, like the experiences that we have on a regular basis. And everything in between is your very own feedback mechanism. And as soon as you start to see life in that way, there's a richness of potential. Because when you learn to interpret what's happening to you in the right way, or even you don't have to interpret it, just see it as feedback for yourself. Every thought you have, right through to every experience that you have. So everything that you've gone through today, if you were to sit down and reflect on it in minute detail, you'll find learning points everywhere. And if you apply those learning points tomorrow, your life might not get easier tomorrow, might take a bit more time and a bit more practice. But generally speaking, if you reflect on what's happened to you, see the learning points and apply them the next time, your life will improve, your life will get easier, you will improve as a human being. But it's that getting into that habit, practicing, seeing the feedback in the first place, knowing that it's there, understanding the opportunity that's available, and then doing something about it. You don't have to sift through everything in minute detail. You can take one or two of the main things in that day and just examine them. And you don't, to begin with, you don't have to reach any earth-shattering conclusions, because the power of this work comes from doing it regularly over a period of time. You may see something today that doesn't make any sense to you, but if you see it twice over the next 2 or 3 weeks, then you'll start to look out for it in week 4 or 5. And if you see it coming, maybe there you'll find your answer. Not when it's happened or after it's happened, but before it's happened. But you'll only be aware that these things happen if you've seen them in your reflection over the last few weeks. So there's no hard and fast rule about what you're going to see, but if you don't do it, you're not going to see anything. So back to your point, how uncomfortable it is, because it's the confrontation that makes it uncomfortable. You're being confronted, and this is why people don't do this work, is because they do not want to see what's there. And I think I said it last week, people work so hard at distracting themselves from looking at themselves that they become successful in their work or in their life. And then they never have to look at themselves. When you talk with anybody, you're constantly scanning their face, their body, for feedback. Do they agree with me? Do they like me? Are they not very happy with me? And I did an exercise once with a team in Amsterdam, and I split them up into pairs and said, okay, you just tell each other a story, anything you like about your friends, your family, your day, your sport, I don't care, it doesn't matter. 2 minutes, and the other person don't react at all. Nothing. No words, no facial expressions, nothing. And it freaked them out. None of them enjoyed doing it because they're not getting any feedback. And when you take the feedback away, then you notice it. When it's not there, then you notice it. So if then you understand that the feedback is always there when you're talking to somebody, when you're relating to your world, then you can start to harness that information for yourself. Same with the story that we had before the break. Don't think about the other person, about what you can do for them, or at least don't get too worked up about it. Don't let it affect you. Ask yourself what it says about you that you're getting affected by that. And in your situation, it's possible, I'm not going to say this is the case, but it's possible. And these are the avenues that you can start to explore when you look at the feedback. It's possible that your frustration at not being able to help the other person is your frustration at yourself and not being able to make a clear decision, let's say. And as soon as you realize that, you relax. And the other person relaxes as well, because you're relaxed. As we said at the beginning, we pick up on each other's. We're all connected. Simple. So if there's a disturbance in your field, in your world, in your environment, look at yourself first. Because in other situations, when you're happy, when your life is fine, you don't feel that disturbance. You just look at the other person and go, they're going to be fine, they're going to be okay. If there's anything I can do, I'll do it. But if we're uptight, if we're angry, if we're emotional, I mean, it's the old one that says if there's something about a person that you don't like, then that's basically a reflection of that trait in yourself. Same thing, really. The world is telling you stuff all the time. And as soon as we start to listen and reflect, then the whole magic box just opens up. And then it's a case of interpreting it, which is where I come in my job. But if you do this regularly enough, often enough, for long enough, you'll start to see the patterns anyway. And even if you're not sure, you can begin to experiment with stuff because you know you're going to be reflecting on the results the next day. So try things out and see what works. So yeah, feedback, it's everywhere. And it's confronting. It's difficult sometimes, but it's beautiful. And it's there all the time. All the time. We create our own experience by what we think, by the beliefs we have, by the attitudes we have. Well, basically just the thought processes that we go through. Because something we thought about yesterday or last week suddenly turns up in our life. And some people will go, yeah, there you go, I told you, proves that life's not fair. Yeah, but you were thinking that last week. That's your mindset. That's what you always think. So that's always going to show up in your life until you change your mindset. Because people think, no, I'll change my mindset when that changes. That's not how it works. That, in front of you, is your feedback mechanism. If you're not happy with that, then change what you're thinking about in the run-up to that experience, whether it be yesterday or last week or last year. Change that first. You have the power to do so. And again, when something happens, if you understand that it's literally a reflection of who you are and not life dealing you another bad card, then you can change the way you react to it. Because when something bad happens to us, it's very easy to blame anything. Somebody else, something else, the world in general, life, this always happens to me. Whoa, hold on a minute. This always happens to you? So why don't you change it? We've talked before about my injuries stem from a strategy that I latched onto very early on, which said, if I can get people to look after me, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to take responsibility. Now, if that means making myself ill and injuring myself, none of which I ever did consciously, I never ran into brick walls on purpose, but there's been all sorts of little things in my life. I did actually run into a brick wall once in the gym at school. We were supposed to put our feet, I think, on the floor, on the wall and turn round, and I fell over just before the wall, and my head hit the wall first. Yeah. Why me? Nobody else did it. Didn't do it on purpose. But this is how powerful this is. I've created all sorts of reasons why people can look after me. And then one guy comes along and says, you're doing this to yourself. And at first I thought, no, surely not. Even if it's not true, it has to be worth experimenting with. If thought can create our experience, why not just think differently? Change your attitude. If you feel any emotion, regardless of what it is, feel it completely, but don't indulge in it. Don't carry it around with you. Don't let it weigh you down, and don't use it to get all sorts of attention from other people. Feel it completely and then let it go. Because again, your emotion is just is part of your feedback mechanism. If you go back in our evolutionary history, that's ultimately what the emotions were all about. If something makes you feel good, then keep doing it. If something makes you feel bad, stop doing it. They're just part of the feedback mechanism. And again, if it makes you feel good, keep doing it. As long as you're not hurting anybody, there's a level of integrity here. But if it makes you feel good, keep doing it. If it doesn't make you feel good, don't do it. And if you're not doing those two things, which essentially is just one thing, paying attention to the emotions and continuing down one road or another, then you're stupid, aren't you? Aren't you? Every little thing is available to us to feed back into our system, to reflect on, to process, to improve who we are. We come out of every reflection an improved version of who we are.